I was 31 years old, sitting in my car in my own driveway, and I couldn't go inside. Not because something happened. Nothing happened. That was the problem. Nothing was happening in my life, and I just spent 45 minutes doing the same thing I'd been doing since I was 13 years old. And I sat there in that car, engine off, hands still on the wheel, and I thought, I am a grown man. And I am still ashamed of myself in the exact same way I was ashamed of myself when I was a teenager hiding a laptop under my bed. 12 years. That's not a phase. That's not a rough patch. 12 years is a relationship. 12 years is longer than some marriages last. And for 12 years, Korn, and I'm going to call it that the whole way through, you know exactly what I mean, was the longest relationship of my life. I'm going to tell you how I ended it. Not the polished version. Not the version where I wake up one day and suddenly have willpower I never had before. The real version. Stick with me, because somewhere in the middle of this, I'm going to tell you the one thing that actually broke it, and it's not what you think. My name is Lucas. But my name is not important now. What's important is that I was you, or I was somebody you know, or I was somebody you're scared you're becoming. I didn't start this story with a confession because I like confessing. I started it there because I need you to know I'm not talking down to you. I'm not a guy who never struggled with this, wagging his finger at you from some moral high ground. I am a man who built a 12-year habit one lonely night at a time, and I'm a man who tore it down brick by brick, and both of those things are true about me. Here's what nobody tells you about an addiction like this one. It's quiet. It doesn't wreck your car. It doesn't show up on a drug test. You can hide it for over a decade and still show up to work, still hold a relationship together, barely, still look like a functioning man from the outside. That's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't burn your house down. It just slowly takes the roof off, piece by piece, until one day you're standing in the rain wondering why everything feels gray. Let me tell you what 12 years actually cost me, because I don't think people understand the bill until it's already been paid. It cost me presence. I was in rooms with people I loved, and I was not there. My mind was somewhere else, rehearsing something, replaying something, planning for the next hit of dopamine I was going to chase the second I was alone again. You ever do that? You ever be at a dinner table, laughing at the right times, nodding at the right times, and some part of you is already gone, already counting down the minutes until you can be alone with a screen? It cost me intimacy. Real intimacy, the kind where another human being looks at you and you let them see you, became harder and harder to access. Because Korn doesn't teach you intimacy. It teaches you consumption. It teaches your brain that arousal is something you take, not something you build with another person. And after enough years of taking, you forget how to build. I watched real connection start to feel boring to me. Not because real connection is boring, because my brain had been rewired to need stimulation that no real human relationship could compete with. And it cost me respect for myself. That's the one that almost killed me, not literally, but it got close to something. Every single time there was this 5-minute window of relief, and then there was the crash, the disgust, the promises, never again. I must have made that promise to myself 1,000 times over 12 years. 1,000 times. And every time I broke it, I trusted myself a little less. You know what happens to a man who stops trusting himself? He stops trying. Why fight for goals? Why fight for discipline in other areas of his life when he can't even keep a promise to himself about something this basic? The shame didn't stay contained. It leaked into everything. My work ethic, my confidence around women, the way I carried myself in a room. Here's the part I really need you to sit with. I tried to quit dozens of times before the time it actually worked. I deleted apps. I downloaded blockers. I told myself this time is different with the same conviction every single time, and every single time I was back within a week, sometimes within hours. And if that's you right now, if you've quit and relapsed so many times you've lost count, I need you to hear this. That doesn't mean you're weak. That doesn't mean you're broken beyond repair. It means you were fighting the wrong fight with the wrong tools for the wrong reason. That's the part nobody told me. And it's the part that finally changed everything. I want to walk you through exactly what shifted, because none of it was magic and all of it was simple. Simple does not mean easy. Remember that. The first thing I had to do was stop fighting the urge and start understanding the wound underneath it. For 12 years, I treated this like a willpower problem. Just don't click the link. Just be stronger. But willpower is a muscle and you cannot outmuscle a wound. Every time I reached for corn, I wasn't reaching for pleasure. I was reaching for an exit. An exit from boredom, from loneliness, from anxiety I didn't know how to sit with, from a version of myself I didn't want to be alone with in silence. The moment I started asking, what am I actually running from right now? Instead of how do I resist this? Everything changed. You don't beat an escape hatch by guarding the hatch. You beat it by fixing the room you're trying to escape from. The second thing was brutal honesty with one other human being. I had hidden this for 12 years. 12 years of secrecy. And secrecy is the soil this thing grows in. It cannot survive in daylight. I told one person, not the internet, not a confession video, one trusted person face to face, and I said the words out loud for the first time in my life. I have a corn addiction and I've had it for 12 years. My voice cracked. I'm not ashamed to tell you that, but something broke open in that moment that 12 years of private shame never could. Shame needs darkness to survive. The second you drag it into the light, in front of someone who still looks at you with respect afterward, it starts to die. The third thing, and this is the one people skip because it sounds too simple, I rebuilt my mornings and my nights. The two danger zones. Most relapses don't happen randomly. They happen in predictable windows, late at night, alone, bored, unstimulated. So I made those windows physically harder to fall into. Phone charging outside my bedroom. A real book by the bed instead of a screen. Mornings that started with movement instead of scrolling. I wasn't relying on willpower at 11 p.m. when I'm tired and weak. I was relying on decisions I made at 7 a.m. when I was clear-headed and strong. You do not make your hardest decisions in your hardest moments. You make them ahead of time while you still have the strength to make them well. And the fourth thing, the quiet one underneath all of it, I had to give myself something to walk toward, not just something to walk away from. Quitting, away from, something never lasts. I had to build a version of my life so full, so engaged, so connected to real people and real goals, that corn simply had less room to live in it. Not because I was white-knuckling resistance every single day, but because my life got too good, too full, too alive to make room for something that small. It's been a while now since that night in the driveway. I won't tell you the exact number, because the exact number isn't the point. The point is I'm not counting days out of fear anymore. I'm just living, and I want to be honest with you about something most men in my position won't admit. The urge doesn't vanish forever. Old wiring doesn't disappear just because you grew. But the man who feels that pull now is not the same man who used to follow it blindly into the dark. I know what it's really asking for, and most nights I have something better to give myself instead. If you've been carrying this 5 years, 12 years, 20, I need you to hear me clearly. You are not the worst thing you've done in private. You are not your worst night, your worst relapse, your worst hour of shame. You are a man who is still here, still breathing, still capable of becoming someone different than who you were last week. That door is not closed. It was never closed. You just forgot it had a handle. If this reached something in you tonight, don't just sit with it quietly the way you've sat with everything else for years. Tell one person. That's where it starts. And if you want more of this, real conversations about discipline, about masculinity, about the wars men fight that nobody sees, stay close. Subscribe, because there's more of this coming, and some of you need it more than you're willing to admit right now. A man who hides his battles fights them alone forever. A man who names them finally gets to win.